The chase towards a coveted spot at the Contender Series takes its turn to the first short track race of the round after almost a full month off of competition. It's live from the virtual Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park, where we welcome you to the official second race of round 2 in the 2024 eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series with our continuing coverage on FTN. Welcome along with us. We are so happy to have you join us for another race here in Road to Pro qualifying action, where alongside eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series winner for Joe Gibbs Racing, Daniel Falkingham, I am Kenneth Bueno. Now, Daniel, it's been a while. I think it's fair to explain to the viewers what exactly has happened over this last month, because it's been a lot in and out of Road to Pro conversation. I think before that, we'll talk about your win, getting to the W in the Coke Series, locked into the playoffs. How good does that feel?
Feels great. Just won the race down the road, down Crawfordsville Road, down at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Got my first ever win in the Coke Series and locks us into the playoffs. A lot has happened in this last month, but it feels good to kind of have that monkey on my back, and we're going to go have some fun in the playoffs. And feels good to not have to go down and run in the Contender Series later this year like a lot of these guys are trying to fight for here tonight. So feels good to have that relief off my back. And now we get to settle back in, get back into the broadcaster's chair, and talk about a little of what's happened since we last talked to you at Chicagoland. And Kenneth, I think we have a lot to get to.
There is a lot that we'll get to, and we'll start right now. So for those who were waiting for a race at Pocono 2 weeks ago on July 11th, well, it's safe to say we were in the same boat. We were waiting for a race to happen, but around 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern, mid-afternoon on a regular day, iRacing suffered a DDoS attack, which shut down services and ultimately left iRacers stranded in their servers, and all of us waiting for a race to happen, or in this case, a race that ultimately did not go down. This was no one really anticipated that this was going to happen, but now that it has, iRacing has decided not to run Pocono at all. They will skip the race and ultimately just go to IRP and complete the rest of the round 2 season. What does this mean for the drivers, the teams, and everyone involved now that they have to basically shift their focus to tonight's race after what happened 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, it's pretty big because even though we didn't run that single race, everyone scored 0 points. There is still a drop week that has yet to be used. These guys technically only have 5 races that are going to count now instead of 6. That's one less race for a lot of these guys that are trying to score some big points and try and make this top 20. And that is not a good, that's not what you want to hear if you're way down in the points. You had a bad first race at Chicagoland, because essentially if you have one more bad race, that's pretty much going to be curtains on your pro aspirations. So for a lot of these guys, the urgency is going to ramp up. But for a lot of those guys that had a really great race at Chicagoland, like Connor Yoroshek and Eddie Kerner, we'll get to that in a minute, they might be breathing a little bit easier. Now there's one less race they got to worry about, and they're already looking like they're in a good point spot as we go through the next couple of races.
But like we talked about, this one obviously affecting road significantly. No one anticipated this was going to happen. I'd say that it may be one of the first times it's ever happened on the same day as an eNASCAR road iRacing is. And again, we also mentioned the fact that the IndyCar Pro Series that was set to be scheduled for July 11th also got affected. However, they did not skip around. They will restart tonight, so they will have the best of the best trying to qualify for that IndyCar Butt Kicker Pro Series schedule that will happen a little later on. That's exactly what went down. But as for what happened Several weeks ago, or should we say probably a full month ago, Daniel, it's been that long, we had Chicagoland on tap, and boy, it was a wonderful starter to round two. It began with Michael P. Frisch on the front row, leading from the pole until he got a black flag on the first lap for jumping the initial start, had to take the penalty serve down pit road, and Daniel, we saw racing all over the block as Kevin Champagne took the lead. Quentin Warman was able to steal it away, so was Andrew Navarro, racing in many different lanes. Probably the best exemplary moment of the iRacing Oval Refresh happening with the new truck update as well.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of great racing, and then this is where it really started to kick off with a collision there that brought out the first caution flag of the night, which led to a restart with guys staying out because this was in the middle of a green flag pit cycle. And then we see Nick Morse get up in line here, causing a bit of a stack up, and then cars crashing everywhere around, and that took out a lot of really good trucks. You saw Daniel Nanny spin back there and just collect out a lot. Logan Helton you saw as well. Just many trucks got collected, which took out a lot of big names and really shuffled up the order for the rest of this race, where strategy came into play, long runs came into play because we would run green to the end. As we were looking at a lot of trucks here, scrolling across the screen here, and we look at Connor Eurochak would get the job done in race number 1 of round number 2 in the second split at Chicagoland Speedway, making him tied with the points lead going into race number 2 with Eddie Kerner, who ended up winning the other split.
And these were the results from the first snake split race at Chicagoland. Eddie Ball getting the victory over Dalton Millam and company. A lot of these names you'll recognize from our split 2 coverage over round 1. A lot of them doing well in the first race at Chicagoland. Obviously, everyone pivoting to IRP tonight. That'll make things very interesting as we prep for the first track race of the round 2 schedule. Let's begin with the Road to Pro ladder just before we get into the server and get ready with things trackside. Daniel, some significant changes to the way that you have to move up the ladder, specifically between Contender and Coke. What's going on there?
Yeah, well, I've been talking about this the last few weeks, even the last few months, rather, and now it's on our screen. We can talk about it a little bit more. So we've already got through round 1, or going through round 2, but this is what I'm going to talk about, the Contender Series and the Coke Series kind of procedure for next year. As you see, at the end of the season of Contender, when these top 20 go into the Contender Series, they're going to be fighting with the top 20 from the qualifying series, the bottom 20 from the Coke Series, at the end of this upcoming year. And at the end of the season, the top 30 from the Contender Series are going to be considered eligible for a pro license. And what do I mean by that? Well, that is because the top 30 from the Contender Series will mix in with the top 20 that stayed in relegation from the Coke Series. Those 50 drivers combined were going to go into a prize pool during free agency somewhere at the start to middle of January, where 40 drivers will be selected from the 20 teams that will be announced sometime in January, and 40 drivers will be picked to race in the 2025 eNASCAR season. And the 10 drivers that do not get selected, that are left out, they will end up they will have to accept becoming fill-in drivers, which, as we've seen an example with Brian Mercurio at the Chicago Street Course, if a current driver will not be able to race or they are suspended on incident points, they will essentially fill in that seat so they can put that car out on the racetrack to represent the team and maybe score some team points for them. And at the end of the Coke season, the bottom 20 will be relegated back to the Contender Series, and we start the whole process again. So a little different format that is going to happen this year when the 2025 free agency rolls around. So it should be really exciting because you have a lot of work you got to put in, and you better show out so those teams can contact you, and so you can go racing in Coke next year. So it's not a guarantee, but you're definitely going to want to run well if those teams are going to reach out to you.
And being a fill-in driver, Daniel, is still a pretty hefty role that you have to carry. Remember, several years ago when Anthony Burroughs had to fill in all the way back in the Coke Series, he definitely made his name known in the Coke Series at that moment when he was able to fill in. So for those who will become those fill-in drivers later this year, obviously a lot to digest, but they will still have their chance at eNASCAR glory, even if it means subbing in for several races. Of course, there is a lot to go through when it comes to that eNASCAR Road to Pro ladder that gets you to the Premier Series at upwards of $500,000 in prizes at the end of the season. But the good news for you, Daniel, you don't have to worry about that. So I guess that's the good thing. You can stay in the top 20. You'll be chilling for the next several months, watch it all unfold from the broadcaster's booth, I assume, and then just work on till 2025. And let's talk a little bit about this IRP track. And Daniel, you had some success here last year. You finished inside the top 5. What's it like to drive this 686-mile circuit?
It's definitely a challenge, but like I said, we did have a great run here in 2022. It's very interesting track to drive because from what I learned in the past experience, it essentially is a one-lane racetrack where you want to enter in the middle of the corner, try to give it a diamond. We want to slide it right up to against the wall, and then bring it back down and cut it on exit for a nice straight exit to try not to spin up those rear tires. So it's definitely, I don't know how much is going to change with the updated trucks that we have seen. They race really well at Chicagoland. How well are they going to race here at a short track like IRP? And I believe one of two small 1 mile or under tracks that we're going to be dealing with in the round 2 schedule. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing how the race goes tonight. But what I have been hearing, it's going to be very hard to pass, and dirty air is very strong. So you're definitely going to want to qualify well, and with a lot of pit strategy eventually going to come into play, we're going to be in for probably a mixed grab bag tonight.
And this track as well, Daniel, also is conducive to highline racing just because of the way the banking is structured here. It's really flat down there near that yellow line to the grass. It doesn't mean that it's impossible to run down there, but a lot of times you'll see those running up high get the runs off the corners and be the most consistent. But that's what the experimentation is all about, and setting up a truck for a race like this at IRP where things can get pretty intimate between the drivers. It can get very difficult. There's a look at the rest of the 2024 schedule. You can imagine in your head that Pocono has been completely wiped off the schedule. Just put a strike through basically in the middle of that. Lucas Oil Raceway Park, our next race now, and then we go to Watkins Glen Road Course Racing for the first and only time in round 2, and the several short tracks that follow also provide their set of counter punches. Milwaukee Mile, Rockingham Speedway, and then of course we end the campaign at Homestead, Miami in South Florida to decide those that of course will advance to the Contender Series as previously mentioned. But right now the hot hand, Daniel, is Connor Euroshak out of Nexus Esports. We talked about his win at Chicagoland, how big that was for him. It seems like he has made Victory Lane almost like a temporary home, and Nexus Esports has been firing on all cylinders. We will have a different set of drivers tonight that does include Logan Clampett, that does include Snake Split 1 winner Eddie Kerner from Chicagoland, but Euroshak is in here too, so that means the mixed bag, like you mentioned, I think is going to transfer to the roster we have tonight, and that'll be very exciting.
I think it's going to be very, very exciting tonight. And like I say, a lot of the names I'm seeing in here, we got Logan Clampett is in here, Michael P. Fritsch is in here, Jack Mace, Andrew Navarro, Blake McCandless, and just several other names that have really popped out to me that are looking for really, really good runs tonight just to build on their momentum for Chicagoland, or if you had a bad race, this is your chance to turn your season around, because one more bad race for a lot of these drivers, it's essentially game over with the limited schedule we have now that we are down one race, as these guys are wrapping up qualifying with 3 seconds left, and it looks like Agnell Phillips is going to line up on the pole position, and we'll get a look at the rest of our starting grid here.
Really great point you make there, Daniel, about the two sides of the spectrum. You've got one where Connor Euroshak and company, maybe Eddie Kerner, are thinking, oh well, one last race, I've got a good start, I'm just going to continue to move that momentum forward. But for those who started on the back foot, they really have to get going, and they have to start punching above their weight, it feels like, at this point of the season, if they want to make a etch into the Contender Series later this fall. Let's take you trackside and give you tonight's starting grid from the virtual Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park, where on the pole is Agnell Phillip in his number 13 Chevrolet Silverado. He'll be the first one to see the green flag. He's got Altus Engineering's James Wenzel on his outside. Solid qualifying effort for the fellow Chevrolet on the outside of row 1. Chicagoland winner from the first Snake Split, Eddie Kerner, will line up in this split from inside row 2. Will Cooley in the number 17. We saw him in action at Chicagoland last time we broadcasted here on FTN. He'll start on the outside of the second row in position number 4. Michael Frisch, who suffered the penalty on lap 1 at Chicagoland, was able to rebound to a P6 effort. Is going to look to parlay that into a solid run on the short track. He's got Matthew Batby in the number 2, finished in the top 10 in the first snake split at Chicagoland about a month ago. That is row number 3. Logan Clampett joins FTN's coverage of round 2 racing for the first time. Welcome, Logan. We've got Andrew Navarro, fellow driver, on his outside. Saw the great things he did at Chicagoland. We'll see if he can replicate that same success on the outside of row 4 to the green flag. Jackson Crowder inside row 5 with Justin Smith in the 8 truck, rounding out the top 10.
As we look down the rest of the list here, we got Michael Bumgarner and Johnny Avila going to round out row number 6 and 11th and 12th. Robbie Verbal is going to round out position number 13 alongside Matt Danson in the 14th position. Connor Yurchak, the winner at Chicagoland in the FTN coverage split, he's going to start in the 15th spot, starting mid-pack. He's got a little bit of work to do alongside Garrison Hogan. Then we got Mitchell Hunt and Dustin Johnson going to round out row number 9. And Kenneth, as we round out the top 20, we got Jack Mace and Matthew Morton.
Back in 21st, you'll find Nathaniel Landwehr in the number 66 inside row 11 with Daniel Nanny in the 19 on his outside. Back in row 12, Ethan Lane in the 29 will be on the inside of Spencer E. Burns in the 06. He'll be in 24th position at the wave of the green flag. Former Coke Series driver Santiago Tires will roll off inside row 13. A lot of work he has cut out for him. Chad McGinley as well in the number 31 truck that's outside of the 13th row. Nick Miller joined us in the 25 machine with Logan Helton, the Firecracker 400 defending winner. He'll be on the outside in position number 28. Back behind them, Matt Cooker in the 35 joins Joshua Ballier in and out of row 15. And then the final 2 rows before we get our field set from IRP, Blake McCandless joins us from deep in the field 31st. Ashton Sleish on his outside in 32nd. And behind them, Ashton Crowder, Caden Rush, and the 27 of Brad Wright bring us our full 35 truck field from IRP. And it's safe to say, Daniel, that is needed to have a full field, especially knowing the context of Pocono getting eliminated from the schedule. Everyone needs to show up if they want to have a remote chance at making contender. Agno Phillip and James Wenzel bring us out of turn 4. Pace car is down. Phillip to the green flag. We are racing from IRP.
Like Agnell's going to come around and lead lap 1. We've already got some action in the middle of the pack. They're already trying to go 3 wide for around maybe the 18th position. As we get a look at Michael P. Frisch, had a great comeback 2 weeks, or a month ago, I should say, at Chicagoland. Came home, finished 6th, remains in that top 20 in points, and he's battled away. And here's the action. It's already getting crazy in the back half of the pack. And as we see, I believe, let's see, there's Blake McCandless. That is Nathaniel Landwehr. That is kind of falling back just a few positions, kind of going back to, it looks like, the 31st position. And as we see, guys, a lot of side-by-side racing. It's going to be very hard to pass from what I've heard from a lot of people. That dirty air is strong. And it's going to be hard to follow and hard to pass, even if you have a really, really strong long run. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing some bumpers later on as we get into this race.
That's the magic of short track racing. You may have to utilize the physicality in order to find yourself in a nice position. This is the battle for 8th place and 9th place on the racetrack. Andrew Navarro on that inside lane with his silver Celebrity Cruises Toyota Tundra TRD Pro, playing defense on Matthew Batby and Michael Bumgarner, both of them going door to door in 3 and 4 as they try to fight for that position as it goes. You were looking at Nathaniel Landwehr, the fall off that he encountered. That's where you saw a lot of the 3 wide. There's a truck around behind them. Matthew Morton stacks a bunch of trucks around. Nick Miller and others getting around the mess. And several involved to bring us our first yellow of the night. Jack Mace, the heart of the crash.
Yeah, we had bumpers flying like crazy. Jack Mace, his night is pretty much already over before it's already began. Gonna have to do a lot of damage repair on that truck as we take a look at what happened.
This is from Mace in the 07 truck, fighting for mid-pack position. You'll see it happen in the entry of 1 and 2, that's where things really get sketchy, and it really starts above his pay grade at that moment. It seemed like he just got, unfortunately, caught up. Matt Danson was really the one that started all of this, got tagged in the entry of 1 and 2, and all of a sudden, it's a parking lot. And we talk about short track racing and physicality to get around dirty air. Well, one thing also is that you don't have a lot of space, so if you do find yourself in a crash, chances are you may end up in it. And there's Danson getting tagged, Jack Mace going into him, and all of the others involved. Daniel Nanny getting a piece of that, McGinley also there, Logan Helton getting a slam, all the bumpers flying all over the place. It's an ugly accident here on lap 7 for the first yellow.
It was a very ugly one, and we had another shot at that replay right there. Right in front. Oh, we had even further contact up the road even after this. If we get a look at this number 60 truck, if we're able to look ahead, you'll see Connor Yurchak just in front. He gets a hit from Matt Danson after Danson gets spun around. And then we got more action even up further right around Yurchak. We had even more action up there. So everyone's going crazy in these first couple of laps, but definitely going to put the end of the night for a few of these guys.
So there's Yurchak, that red, white, or red, blue, and black Ford F-150, and then the truck in front getting loose. And all of a sudden,
that is Robbie Vrabel. So Robbie Vrabel, kind of like one of the innocent bystanders in this whole thing, had a really good start, and now has already got to work his way up through the field as we see Jack Mace, a lot of damage repair, and yeah, definitely not what a lot of these guys needed to start this race, especially in 120 laps. As we see Dustin Johnson's on pit road as well, he's getting some damage repair, and further back, I believe that is Matthew Morton. He's getting some damage repair, maybe taking a pit stop, which might start playing into some strategy, because with a lot of yellows, depending on when the timing of the yellows comes, these guys could go all the way without having to pit once. With around 120 laps, is from what I've been hearing, if you save a little bit of fuel, if this race goes green, you could stay out the whole race without having to pit. So if we start getting a lot of yellows, you see these guys running up front, I would not expect them to come to pit road at all once, but depends on what kind of runs we get. And right now, it's looking like this could be a caution-filled one, but you never know with these road-to-pro races.
Well, when it's caution-filled, you can probably bank on not taking tires, but we could end up in a situation where staying out the whole race may not work. Tires do matter here at IRP, where this track surface is pretty rough, and it can eat up the right front specifically with how little banking you've got all across the speedway. We are doubled up and ready for the restart at lap number 10. Eddie Kerner on the outside of the front row this time, but Agno Phillip there to beat Kerner to the gun. Green flag in the air. Michael P. Frisch already attacking for second. He's got it at the exit of turn 2.
Yeah, looks like Eddie kind of tried to time the restart there on Agno Phillip, but just kind of fired a little too early, had to lift off the gas. And that's going to allow Michael Frisch to take advantage of the spot. So move him to P2, Kerner back to P3. Logan Claybit, as you see him, he's up to the number 4 spot. He's
pushing up through the field. He was a threat, of course, in the Snake Split 1 race at Chicagoland almost a month ago. First time, I believe, we really see him on FTN in our coverage of this series. So good to see Clampett in action. He currently sits inside the top 5. The battling is going around deep in the mid-pack. Andrew Navarro in the heart of everything. Justin Smith, Will Cooley, Johnny Avila. Several drivers looking to get around through the bottom lane. We mentioned physicality. That could be a big factor in it. Well, you also factor the physicality in the middle of the corner, Daniel. This track, of course, doesn't have that much banking to catch you, so many times you'll see door-to-door action get very close, if not making contact with each other, just because you're trying to push it center and get the best exit off.
Yeah, these guys are going to get very close, and it's going to get very physical the later on we get into this race, just because the urgency just trying to get that track position. I'll be right on board with Will Cooley, the first side-by-side battle on the racetrack, and now it's going to start single filing out. It looks like it's just about single file throughout the entirety of the top 10. But a nice little onboard shot with Will Cooley there, seeing what it's like to get around this racetrack.
It's really tough, and especially with these overcast conditions, I'd imagine that it's not that much easier. And Cooley, Justin Smith, they continue to maintain that bout for P9. Johnny Avila hanging on the back of this. We'll look to see what happens. Got the front row seat, but will stay back, and everyone remains single file. I guess the biggest thing that you can take away from a track like IRP is that it's so short to the point where a significant amount of damage in some places might not hurt you all that much. And we can say the same for guys like Connor Yurchak, who did get a piece of the accident early in this race, but seems to be patrolling just fine with a rather clean number 6 Ford F-150 as he watches Matt Cooker and Ethan Lane go side by side right behind him. That's at the exit of turn 4. This is around for 15th place.
Yeah, Euroshack, good-looking truck, I must say, representing the area racing league that runs on several different nights. Very, very nice-looking truck out there trying to go back-to-back. Definitely been one of my standouts so far just the entirety of this Road to Pro season. We've seen him shine through the entirety of round number 1, and even come over to round once going into round 2 with a little bit tougher competition, went out and won right off the bat. So as long as he just puts together another next few good races here, we'll be seeing him in the Contender Series. So right now running just outside the top 50, just outside the top 10 right now in the 13th spot, going to battle right now with, I believe that is Ethan Lane. Right now, just needs a good, solid race, but it's going to come down. It's going to come to him eventually.
Well, for Connor Euroshack, obviously the spirit's really high, not only for himself, but his team at Nexus Esports with Front Row Motorsports. They have been ecstatic since the season has began. So much success, and we can tally back to our coverage of Split 2 at Las Vegas, where Euroshack was the winner, but 3 out of the top 5 drivers were out of that Nexus Esports camp, and like you said, Daniel, going to round 2 with a bang and already starting off the round swinging by taking the win in Joliet, Illinois. That means a lot not only for Euroshack, but for Nexus as a whole, a team that sort of wants to become the next Altis like they were several years ago when they have a bunch of drivers making it into Contender and having a solid chance at making the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Euroshack still in 14th as it stands. Big mover here early on as of lap 19. Blake McCandless ringing up his name as he moves up to the place after starting in 31st. Big moves for the 9 truck. And caution is out.
We have a caution.
Once again.
Nathaniel Landwehr has gone around in the middle of turns 1 and 2. We're going to have to get a look at the replay, see what happened there, but seemed like he had a decent starting position, fell back really quickly, and now he is the second caution of the night. We're going to take a look at the replay here. Battle, it looks like Santee battling around with a lot of others here near the back half of the field. Oh, just gets up into Santiago Gutierrez and just unfortunately just ran out of room on the exit of turn 4. He goes around, doesn't look too significant of damage, so he'll go on, maybe fix a little bit on that right rear quarter panel. And hopefully he doesn't have any side skirt damage, because if he has any bit of side skirt damage to that 66 machine, that's effectively night over. He's got a lost performance and is not going to run the same for the rest of this race. So hopefully he's not hurt too much.
An aerial look at what happens between Landwehr, that green and white Ford F-150, that bright red truck of Santiago Gutierrez, Robbie Vrabel, who was involved in the first yellow of the night, going for a spin in turn 2. Ultimately gets away from this mostly scot-free. Landwehr, we mentioned on the backfall after what happened on the opening lap, was getting smothered by the field, fell deep in the running order, and then almost basically just got involved in that first yellow. It took everyone for a whirlwind, and unfortunately for Landwehr, the downfall continues in a way. He is down pit road getting his truck fixed. The same can be said for a lot of those who either suffered damage from the opening incident of the race, or just now. There's Santiago Gutierrez in his red Toyota Tundra TRD Pro getting out, and so is Landwehr, as several others look to beat the pace car and the field as they come back around, trying to not get lapped here at IRP. And for you, Daniel, for as well as you ran not that long ago when we took on this track and Road to Pro competition, what did you take away from your experience racing here? Because I know at a lot of other short tracks, they race completely different to what IRP does, especially in the banking category, especially in the lane choosing category. There are so many unique factors about IRP that make you have to drive this track differently than a lot of others that we'll encounter this season, and even those that we don't. What helped you get a bearing of this racetrack and get used to how it drives?
Yeah, it's pretty much plain and simple, just getting enough laps to where I felt comfortable and I knew what I was doing. And it's kind of hard to really speak from past experience because now the trucks are so much different from what they were back in 2022. And even the race that I was in, the split I was in that night 2 years ago, we had a 120-something lap run to end the race. So we had a few cautions early, and then we went green the rest of the way. So could we start seeing something like this as we see Daniel Nanny and others come to pit road? Could we start seeing something like that happen tonight where we had a few early cautions? And can we have a very long run to end this race? We'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, from past experience, a lot of green flag racing, just running as consistent laps as I can. And even back then, it was really hard to pass because track position meant so much. So qualifying well, which I did, I ended up qualifying 4th that night, finished 5th. So qualifying well and just racing well will always lead to success at these short tracks, especially going through the pro ladder.
It is fun to drive, but like you said, pretty difficult, especially with these trucks that produce so much turbulent air at the back end with these large spoilers. You were looking at Daniel Nanny and Nathaniel Landwehr taking their trip down pit road once again just to reassure that they've got all the damage fixed. And we were mentioning the different sides of the table coming off of the first race at Chicagoland, and then with the cancellation of the Pocono race, which should have been race number 2 of the round. Guys like Connor Euroshak at the very top, but guys like Daniel Nanny pretty much at the bottom of the group. Finished 29th after being involved in a pretty sizable accident that took place entering turn 3 midway through that Chicagoland race. Daniel Nanny, with the unfortunate circumstances happening now, he's definitely going to be behind the 8 ball as we move forward. Restart prepped up again for lap 26 of 120. Agno Phillip, Michael P. Frisch set to go back once again. Phillip, the chase to turn 1 in control. Eddie Kerner, Michael Frisch going at it for second place. Seems to be rather routine. Phillip leads him out of turn 2.
Now Phillip, another good restart as we see Eddie Kerner, Michael P. Frisch, 2 teammates side by side right there out of the NFR/EPI camp. And Frisch will get that run off the top. Run off the high side as Logan Clement, he's trying to sneak around Eddie Kerner. Kerner shuts the door off of turn 4. He ain't going to let that happen. As we got really good side-by-side racing right here for the 4th position between Logan Clement and Jackson Crowder. And Michael Bumgarner, Andrew Navarro trying to follow suit.
Got to give credit to those that really try to push it down the inside lane. Crowder being one of them, entering the top 5. He doesn't have help behind him from Michael Bumgarner, but he looks to push Clement way up high. They remain side-by-side, and we can see the 2 rows, or the several rows of 2-wide action way behind them in the middle of the top 15 and top 20. Many of them still looking to decide the position. Clement getting held by Crowder here in 3 and 4, staying there for 4th place. It's wonderful to watch.
Some great side-by-side racing right throughout this field. And some guys are trying to maybe roll the bottom in case the top line does stack up with a lot of trucks trying to run the outside lane, as we get a really good perspective on board here as we of Matthew Batby on board, as we see James Wetzel out in front out of the Altus machine, out of the Altus Canton. We see, I believe, that is Justin R. Smith up ahead in front of James Wetzel. But Matthew Batby, a little sideways there as he's trying to fight off Will Cooley, and Johnny Avila making a run behind him. And right now, starting all single file out, trying to get into single file line, trying to knock some laps out right now, as we have completed a quarter distance at lap 30.
This is what everybody wants to see, a settling green flag run. And you talk about in your race how it went about 120 laps green. These guys definitely want it to happen. How about this? Push it 3 wide. Johnny Avila looking up high, Ethan Lane down low, and Will Cooley trying to play fiddle in the middle. He's looking to stay there. He shuts off Johnny Avila on the outside and almost puts him into the outside wall. Heavily contentious positions for the inside of the top 15. And now here comes Zero Shack down low for 13.
He's looking downstairs. I believe he's going alongside. That is Johnny Avila he's battling with. And you got Garrison Hogan in the Nitro Sim Racing machine right behind him. And then just look at this. Continue to be side by side as Zero Shack. He can't hold off Avila right there. He's going to slot back in line. Trying to not lose spots around the outside lane, because if you do get trapped on that bottom lane, they can just roll the top on you. The top is the preferred line, like we have mentioned countless times. So definitely need to get up in line here as Johnny Avila, he is right there behind this battle, which looks to be for the 10th spot. This is just inside the top 10 with Matthew Batby and Will Cooley. And yeah, been great side-by-side racing. And let me correct myself, that is Ethan Lane that Will Cooley is racing with right there. Trying to remember all these trucks, these different paint schemes are confusing me a little bit.
And the custom numbers too, it never gets easy. Look at Daniel Nanny taking it down to the inside, rocketing on the flat part of the racetrack. He's on the inside, 3 wide. Blake McCandless at the top, all the way in the middle is Mitchell Hunt. He backs out before the entry of turn 3, and we mentioned Daniel Nanny having to get things sorted, especially after what happened at Chicagoland, because you have that race from Pocono eliminated from the round 2 schedule. You'll see this, a lot more desperation and trying to punch above the weight. Nanny has moved up with the fresh tires and a repaired race truck up to 19th and chasing forward to right. Caden Rush, Garrison Hogan in the battle we were watching a little earlier.
Yeah, I just want to highlight Daniel Nanny here. He did come to pit road like we saw under that caution. Maybe came off, put some tires on, fix that damage. Maybe using a bit of that tire advantage to move through this field. And if this goes green, he can maybe scam a few more spots the longer this race goes. So definitely something we need to keep an eye out on. If he's going to move up another spot, And you look at him, he's just going to drive it right down to the bottom, trying to make up some time, just cutting the distance on the racetrack. And I'd say he's making it work really well right now.
He's the only driver, really, Daniel, at this point of the race to go way down there. Some drivers are a little scared to experiment with that very bottom lane just because it's so flat. It's almost a little bit like New Hampshire in the way that you really have to play your cards right when you're at the flattest part of the circuit, but Nanny is making it work. He has slid into 17th, and of course that is a product of the fresh tires, but it is working for Nanny, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So as he goes down under Garrison Hogan, that will be for that 17th spot with the Nitro Circus Toyota Tundra. Now looking under Caden Rush in the 6 truck. Boy, it's fun to watch this POV because he's almost fighting the wheel too as he goes into the corner. And look at how he diamonds back down on the racetrack to get that straight exit.
Yeah, he is working that wheel for sure, trying to find all the grip he can. And now he's going to slide up in the line right in front of Garrison Hogan in the 17th position. So a lot of ground made. And look, here we go. He's going to try to set up a run off of turn number 2. Gets great drive on the exit as Caden Rush slips up a little bit. Throws it down to the inside of turns 3 and 4. And he's going to try to pick up a few more.
He looks down low, still underneath Caden Rush. But the defense holding up for the 6 truck as it stands, but stuck in line behind Matt Cooker, then Connor Euroshak, which leads this small group from around 14th on back. A bit of separation, though, between them and Johnny Avila. This is the product of the green flag run, now fully in development. Not that much movement from those at the top of the field as Phillip continues to man this race 40 out of 120 in, but most of the shuffling is around that mid-pack where you see Nanny on the fresh tires move forward. But with this track, of course, it will change, and it feels like a short track in reverse, Daniel, to the point where you're not looking at an inside freight train, you're looking at an outside freight train as the biggest threat. Now over this run, how do you play the lanes now that everyone's put all their energy into the middle and somewhat near the outside wall?
Yeah, I guess you just want to try to where your truck handles best. Some might have it, and that ain't gonna matter because the caution is out.
And caution is out. Johnny Avila in trouble. We saw him in 13th place at the time of the yellow. And from what I can see on that right front and the left front, Daniel, it is destroyed. He has taken his truck immediately to the garage. Johnny Avila out of tonight's race at IRP, only 42 laps in. And here's a look at what happened. He was almost by his lonesome when it all occurred.
Yeah, I think I might know what this is suspected here. I think we might, because his wheels were all turned to the left as I saw on the right front, and it is what I figured. That looks like a steering wheel or a wheel or pedal disconnect, mainly a wheel disconnect probably. So yeah, just turned left really quick. So must have had a disconnection with the wheel, and so yeah, that's going to be the early end of the night for Johnny Avila. As we take a quick look on the onboard here. Yep,
oh, yeah.
There you go. You see the wheel, just a wheel disconnect, unfortunately. So, some sort of hardware issue. You hate to see that for Johnny Avila. As we got pit stops underway. As we got guys that are pitted, we got guys that are staying out.
And Agnel Phillip is among those that leads the troops that are
Eddie
staying
Kerner's
out.
pitted.
A bunch of drivers are coming in, and you're right, including Mr. Eddie Ball himself. A ton of drivers have taken their chance in. There's Santiago Tires, who was involved in one of the earlier yellows, and everyone racing to the exit of pit road. It's a tough one to get out of that little exit lane at the entry of turn 1, but it is everyone 10th on back, starting with that Race EPI Chevrolet of Eddie Kerner taking the gamble 44 laps in.
Eddie Kerner did come off with 4 tires. I think I saw 4 tires for most of the field. I may have seen some 2 tires as well. But, I mean, hey, why not? Give it a try. We'll see what happens. And I think this might work out well because, I mean, we did have quite a few guys that did stay out. But we'll see how this works out. Eddie Kerner, across the timing and scoring, is going to line up in the 10th position. So this, I think, was a really good strategy call. And hopefully if we get a lot of green flag racing, this might work out in the favor for all those guys that pitted.
So what you're telling me now, Daniel, is that everyone 1st through 9th, they're sitting ducks?
Well, it's just going to depend on how the race ebbs and flows here, because if we start getting a lot of cautions, the tires are going to start evening out through heat cycles, and so that might come right back to him. But for Eddie, with the fresh tires and with how close he is up to the front of the field still, because he did have a lot of people come with him, this could play in his favor if we get a lot of green flag racing, because now we've run over 40 laps of racing now, so this might be right in his hands, but we still got over half this race left to figure out if that was a good call or not, so we'll have to see what happens here.
Well, the one thing we can tell you is that our last green flag run was the longest that we've had all night long over these 46 laps currently complete from IRP. So if that tells you anything, is that maybe the chaos could simmer down a bit and the the green flag run, if we get another long one like we did last time, it could open that door up for those on fresh tires. Now, not everyone first through ninth are on 46 and counting lap old tires. We, of course, have Daniel Nanny, who is the fresher tire truck out of this group to stay out. He has moved up to 5th. It's somewhat what he needs over what's happened over the first sector of this race. Spencer E. Burns in the 34 truck. He runs 7th right now on 24 lap old tires. And then Robbie Vrabel Jr., who was involved in that first accident, 39, now 40 laps into his stint. And the last truck in this group, Joshua Ballier in the 10, who finished well at Daytona to begin Split 2's round 1 coverage. He is 23 laps in his stint and counting. So it's not all equal from 1st through 9th. That tells you maybe some challenges for Eddie Kerner and those 10th on back looking to carve their way through the field. Among some other notable names to enter pit road, Jackson Crowder in his machine. So did Logan Clampett come down pit road that time by. So across the line, lap 48, we've got a stunner to set up here on this upcoming restart. Just a quick reminder that if you want to keep up to date with all of the action in the world of eNASCAR, you can scan that QR code on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. It'll take you to the eNASCAR subscriber letter and the website to get all the latest updates, all the developments in the world of eNASCAR from Road to Pro to Contender to the Coke Series and beyond with iRacing, the official simulation partner of NASCAR. All right, Phillip, Michael Frisch to restart.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick note before we go back green. Spencer Burns told me before this race he is the worst short track racer in all of the Road to Pro field, but I don't believe that to be true. He's on some strategy here and trying to get out a good finish, so I got a lot of hope in Spencer here.
You know what? You could not believe the word. We'll see what he does here as of this green flag run. It's Agnell Phillip and Michael P. Frisch leading the group of 9 to stay out as of this recent yellow. Green flag back in the air. Phillip once again in control. Once more, the battle for second heating up in the entry to 1 and 2. Look at Daniel Nanny trying to fire off on the inside lane. Unsuccessful as we watch those 9th on back carve through the field.
Eddie Kerner is already making 3 and 4 wide moves in the middle of the pack, going for 9th, going for 8th, and going for more as he's trying to rip that side. Now watch me. If he's gonna get cleared, we're 4 wide in the back half of the pack. And that we got trucks everywhere. They're getting stuffed into the wall and everything. Old tires. That's cars going backwards right there. As we see Eddie Kerner now, he's been checked up. Now they're going 3 wide with, I believe, Joshua Ballier, Jackson Crowder, Caden Rush, Logan Clampett, and others. It's getting wild out here.
Oh, this is not getting pretty. 3 wide in the middle is Eddie Kerner. More contact there with Ballier. Goes under and into Jackson Crowder. Caden Rush forces his way through the middle, and we are once again almost 4 wide for position inside the top 10. Kerner moves his way through. Rush rushes out inside. Crowder still down low, and Clampett and others still trying to find their place. 3 wide again behind them, and more on the outside wall.
Yeah, Garrison Hogan just got put into the wall by Eddie Kerner. Kerner tried to make a move up the middle, gave him a little bump. He squeezed through and kind of forced his way into that position. As we now got more 3 wide action. Euroshat, McCandless, and Bumgarner, they're 3 wide back there. Garrison Hogan, he's going backwards. Dr. Balliet, he's getting knocked sideways. And here goes Bumgarner. He's trying to ring it around the top side. Blake McCandless stuck in the middle as more of these guys trying to get around these old tires. It's really been a mixed up field up here. And these guys doing a good job hanging on to it as we're going to go 4 wide again. And that's not going to work. One truck spins out of line, and that's going to bring out the caution. And I believe, trying to get a check on who that was Ethan Lane that goes around, was stuck on the bottom of 4 wide. And unfortunately, that's going to put him at the back half of the field now.
We knew things were going to boil over at some point. The answer is now, with Ethan Lane getting the right front damage. Goes for the spill at the exit of turn 2. Caution is out once again from Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park. And it's safe to say, Daniel, I think we were expecting that to happen at some point. Joshua Ballier was hanging on by a thread, getting eaten up by this pack. They make it 4 wide for a moment. There was some hip checking there. We'll get a better angle of what happened to Ethan Lane, but he was the man on the bottom, wanting to arc underneath Connor Euroshak, and then the 97 truck up there. I think Connor Euroshak makes the most contact with Lane, sends him spinning towards the inside wall. Phenomenal job of holding on to the brakes and getting away from that inside wall contact, but of course, for Lane, lost track position, some flat-spotted tires, and some damage. Yellow is out again.
Yeah, that's just a product of just tight quarters racing right there. Just I I think it was going to happen eventually, but I'm surprised it took them a while before it happened, as we see a lot of guys that stayed out. They're coming to get their set of tires now. And I'd say if you're any of these guys that are still at the front of the field, guys like Phillip, guys like Frisch, Navarro, Nanny, all those guys, I think at this point of the race, you've made your bet. Because if you haven't pitted now, you probably aren't pitting the rest of the race. So these guys are going to try to hang on the best they can. But Eddie Kerner, I'll give it to him. He was fighting through the field there. Him, Jackson Crowder were all fighting up through there. But Eddie gained 5 spots, restarted 10th, is up to 5th. But now is at a pretty good position to keep moving forward here, as long as we keep having some green flag racing.
You know,
but guys like Jackson, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was about to say, Jackson Crowder, he was getting up through there. He's up to 8th. Clampet's up to 9th. So, like, they're already making quick work with a lot of the old tires, guys. But right now, Eddie Kerner definitely made the best work right there.
Well, you know, at most tracks, Daniel, being on fresher tires can be rather easy. Chicagoland is a pretty good example of that because you've got so many lanes to choose from, so that on fresh tires, you can just find your way to the inside, middle, or top and just make the pass. At IRP, you limit that space and limit the usable lanes to maybe 3 or 4, maybe less than that. And then you get what happened with Eddie Kerner and company trying to weave their way through traffic. It just got so hectic in the middle of the pack. But Eddie Kerner, even with all of that going down in a short green flag run, he still pushed up to 5th after restarting in 10th on the green flag jump. So that just tells you all that you need to know, and I think I agree with you there, Daniel. It's all about these guys at the front when they decide to come down pit road, because at this point they've sort of made their bet. They know Kerner and the others are on their way upwards. They just have to play a little more defense, although there are less trucks in the bag. For those who did come down pit road, James Wenzel beginning the group of those 23rd on back to visit the pit lane for obvious damage repair. Robbie Vrabel Jr. in there, Ethan Lane, of course, Spencer Burns down there, Joshua Ballier. A ton of them also, too, getting 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles because it feels like they sort of regretted their decision to stay out on old tires. But now that Eddie Kerner is up to 5th, Daniel, how much of a threat is that for Agnel Phillip, and how much defense does he have to play in order to keep the race lead?
Well, thankfully, Agnel has control of the restarts, and he has clean air, which has been very, very important from what I've been hearing these guys testing all week. So he's got the clean air, he's got the advantage. His tires are probably in the best condition, but he's gonna probably need a couple of yellow flags for these tires to even out back with all the guys that pitted.
Well, here it is. Eddie Kerner, the freshest tire truck in the field, excuse me there. He's inside the top 5. Agnel Phillip, Michael P. Frisch to the green flag restart lap 59 of 120. We are basically halfway down here from IRP. Navarro and Frisch door to door for that second spot. Kerner trying to force his nose down the middle, plays the patient in trouble. Behind them, one truck spinning. It's Justin R. Smith, and others have gotten tagged in the mix. Matthew Bappy and others hip checking each other. Yellow flag is out. I don't believe we had a proper spin as everyone gets all together, but the yellow flies regardless after a hectic restart.
I kind of saw that one coming from a mile away when I saw there was a 3-wide battle with Justin R. Smith was kind of sliding up in front of Blake McCandless, just trying to get up in line and just wasn't quite clear, as we're going to see on the replay here. Just a little bit of 3-wide action. Blake McCandless going up the middle on Garrison Hogan. And just Justin Smith just trying to roll the bottom. Just did not quite see that Blake was there. And that's going to collect a few of them. But they all hung. Oh, never mind. I was going to say they all did a pretty good job to hang on to it. But a couple more trucks got collected in that.
We'll take a look with Garrison Hogan, who was on the outside of the 3-wide action that triggered this yellow flag. It felt like the opposite of what happened with Ethan Lane on the last yellow. Instead of getting pushed downwards, he got pushed up into the field. Hogan with nowhere to go but the outside wall. And then even more so, some trouble right in front that could have gone dearly worse with several other trucks in the mix of that group. I believe Matt Cooker was involved in that as well. He seemed to be the truck directly in the middle that sort of ping-ponged around. So there's the spin with Smith. There is Matt Cooker in the middle. I don't know how that didn't stuff more trucks up together, but they got real lucky there.
They got real lucky. I'm surprised we didn't junk up more trucks than I initially thought. But so yeah, there we go. Another caution flag, another heat cycle for these guys up front, as we have now just crossed the halfway distance point of this race. Agnel Phillip, he's led them all from the pole position. Michael Frisch just hanging up here in second. Andrew Navarro is third. Just a lot of these guys that we do expect to see up at the front each and every week. Some of these guys all 3 of these guys were in the Contender Series 1 year ago. and had to fall back to the Road Pro ladder, not making the top 20 last year. So these guys are trying to make it back there, and with all their points positions right now, they're all in pretty good spots. So all of these three just kind of up here just doing what they do best.
And for these three drivers, they finished in the top 10 in the second split race at Chicagoland about a month ago. Philip finishing in 4th place. Michael P. Frisch, like we talked about, even with that opening lap black flag penalty that he had to serve while the field was still going under green, did not lose a lap and was able to rebound after all of that to finish in P6. These are guys that are just happy to see all these yellows fly. They know that they can just keep their position, stay up front, of course, and get all the points that are necessary. And for Philip, no one's been able to stop him since he's had control of this race. He's led almost every single lap, and since we have dropped the green flag, has been unbeatable on the restarts and getting in that clean air, like you talked about, Daniel, oh so important. So Michael P. Frisch behind, looking to make a move. I don't know if there is a way to, but if there was, Daniel, how would you approach that if you're Michael in 2nd place?
Yeah, I think your best bet is maybe if you can just time one of these restarts well and just hold it around the outside, then congratulations. You may have outfoxed them. But just with how small the restart zone is, as you see the painted Geico on the inside lane right there, as you saw in the inside lane right there, painted Geico, that's where the restart zone is. And it's not a very, very big box. And it's a very, very short run down to turn 1 right from the restart zone. So really not a lot you can do, especially in a spot like this when Agnell has all control of the restarts. It's just if you can just time it well, you can just hold it around the outside and have that grip on the top side, then I'll give you a round of applause.
Can we get the symphony going once again for Agnell Phillip, who's built up a solid orchestra behind him as he continues to man this field. Michael P. Frisch to react on the outside. Restart ready, passed halfway home at 65 of 120. They stack up on both lanes, but Phillip jumps the gun early. Navarro gets the solid run to make it to the inside of P. Frisch. He's got it. That's P2 for Navarro.
Yeah, Navarro hit that restart very well. Gave a big shot to the back end of Agnell Phillip there. Now he's going to battle the inside of Michael Frisch. He's going to take away that 2nd spot as we got Eddie Kerner on those fresher tires. He's side by side with Daniel Nanny. Nanny, he's on some fresher rubber than the top 3 as well. He's trying to fight hard to stay up here. But Eddie Kerner, he's going to try to, he's not going to leave him a lot of room. Very tight quarters racing. Oh, he's going to wiggle. He's going to get loose. He's sideways. He saves it. But that's going to allow Caden Rush to throw it up the inside 3 wide. He's going to wrap that inside, wrap that bottom, try to find some grip. And is not going to have the greatest exit. He's going to lose maybe 2 or 3 spots right there. Maybe even more.
3 wide again. And you saw Rush several laps ago give this shot to the rear end of Daniel Nanny, got him sideways in the middle of the corner. Eddie Kerner and Daniel Nanny still going at it. This is for P4 on the racetrack, and this is only going to make the route up front tougher for that truck right there in Kerner. He's got the fresh tires, but with these restarts, has it changed the heat cycle and has it basically elevated him to the same place as everyone else? He gets down low on Nanny. He makes the pass complete after a while, and there's Nick Miller, the team lap truck on the very bottom in that Toyota Tundra. Kerner makes his way down low. Crowder the next one up. And Kerner now to play a little bit of offense as he tries to chase down Navarro and company leading this race.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of clean track in front of him. Only 3 trucks to get through, and if this stays green, we'll see how the handling of that 98 is going to come in. How much did he abuse his tires coming through the field? Because he had to make that bottom lane work, and he had to drive really aggressive to get those spots. Further on back, we got a battle for the 5th position. This is just for a position inside the top 5 between Nanny and now Jackson Crowder. He's been a player up front all night long. He also pitted. Oh, he's going to slip it up into Daniel Nanny. A little bit of short track contact. We expect to see that. They're going to remain side by side. Giving props to Nanny here. He's holding on really, really well with slightly older tires than these guys. But Jackson Crowder, he's getting aggressive, maybe using them up a little bit, but that's short track racing for you. He's going to get the spot at the line, but they're going to remain side by side entering turn number 1. And he's not going to leave him a lot of room to the outside, but Crowder, oh, Nanny's a little loose on the outside. Crowder got the spot.
Well, you're right. Nanny is in a sea of fresh tire trucks. A lot of these guys on 27 laps and counting on their set of Goodyear Eagles, but these guys are also getting stagnated quite a bit. Caden Rush can't make the attempted pass on Nanny, work down the inside. You'll have to hit the reset button and try again, but that's where you lean on the physicality, get a little rough with the drivers right in front to make that pass complete. You see Rush trying to do his best on the bottom. It's starting to slicken up over the course of this run, and we talk about how narrow this track is in comparison to a lot of others on this Road to Pro schedule. It become almost impossible to make a pass down low, and that's what you're watching live with Caden Rush. Onboard look with the 26 truck in sim as he tries to chase down that Ryko Ford F-150.
Trying to chase him down as here we go. We're going to have another look down the inside, and it's not going to matter. That's going to be put to a halt as we're going to be back under caution. For trying to remember how many yellow flags we've had here. I'm kind of losing count as I'm not exactly sure what happened here.
Oh,
there we go. That is Garrison Hogan. Garrison Hogan for the Nitro Circus outfit. He's gone around back in between turns 3 and 4. The previous caution, he got swept up in an incident with Justin R. Smith. But now he's going to... We'll see what happened to him. That is Ethan Lane. Oh, gets a tap from Ethan Lane. Hard into the outside wall with the back end. No one else is going to hit him, thankfully. And that is going to make that race a little bit tougher. Not been really the greatest race for Garrison, but it's definitely going to make it a little bit harder now that he's going to be buried in the pack.
Well, this is the second time that Lane and Hogan are involved in the same sentence for a crash. We saw what happened with the 3-wide action that sent him spinning, and also with Justin R. Smith. Well, Garrison Hogan seemed to be on the victim end of this one, getting sent to the outside wall. And the kicking the tires Nitro Circus Toyota Tundra is beaten up here at IRP. That's not what Hogan wanted to see at all. But what we are seeing are, of course, drivers taking their efforts down pit road, but not many of them from the front pack. Daniel Nanny was one of them, though, hitting and coming out in 18th place as a result of all of this. But such a tough break there, Daniel, for, of course, Garrison Hogan, who was running solidly inside the top 10 for most of this race. And it really only takes one to be the catalyst in sending you backwards. It's exactly what happened to the driver of that Nitro Circus Toyota. And all of a sudden, he may just be out of this just because of how tough it is to make up track position.
Yeah, very much. But we'll see what Daniel Nanny and Garrett Hogan, guys like those guys, they came down and got tires, because it's only going to get, the aggression level is going to ramp up, because we are getting down to the end of this race. Only 45 circuits left around the IRP racing facility to go. So the urgency is going to be up, and for these guys up front, I think it's fairly certain they will not be seeing pit road once this race. So definitely going to be a fight for all these guys up front, and a lot of those guys that are on fresh tires, they got their work cut out for if they're going to maybe come out and maybe steal one here. A lot of racing left. You never know what's going to happen.
Still, of course, but over these long green flag runs, at least some of the short ones that we've had, you know, it's all been Agno Phillip, Michael P. Frisch, and Andrew Navarro. And what showed me something there on the last restart, Daniel, was the fact that Eddie Kerner could not make up that much ground. You'd figure that the tire advantage would help Kerner blow past these guys and make them look like they're standing still, but it seemed to be the opposite. As he was fighting with Nanny and company, he seemed to have sort of plateaued around where he was at, then trying to chase down Navarro and company up ahead. That didn't seem to work, and even over the shorter green flag run that we had, he could not gain that much ground on the likes of Navarro and those ahead of him. So for Kerner, are the fresh tires just giving way here? Are they not exactly working the way they're supposed to? And did those cautions sort of accelerate the wearing process for Kerner and the rest of those guys behind who are on the fresher rubber?
Definitely just the multiple heat cycles we've now had since he pitted. It's definitely probably bringing them back, evening them out, but he's got maybe still a little bit of advantage left, because he was starting to run down the top 3 once the caution, or before the caution did come out. But now I would say he's in the preferred line on this restart, right up on the top side. Can maybe get around Andrew and then maybe go to work on these top 2. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Coming to 42 to go.
Well, the question is, can anyone stop Agno Phillip? He has been unstoppable so far tonight from IRP. 42 left to go at the start-finish line. Michael P. Frisch is doing everything that he can to stay with that 13 truck, but it will not matter. Navarro makes his way down low. They hip check going into turn 1. Phillip leads him to the back straightaway.
Going to lead him to the back straightaway. Andrew Navarro, he's going to go underneath Michael P. Frisch once again. He did get the second spot for a brief moment before Frisch was able to get back around him. He's going to fight to the bottom of the racetrack. He's been really strong on the bottom on these restarts. Going to come back side by side with Frisch off turn number 4. And they're going to keep remaining side by side. We got a little 3-wide action. This is for the 4th place. Jackson Crowder, he's getting bounced around in the middle with a move by Logan Clampett. He's going to hang on to it as here comes Michael Bumgarner to the inside.
He was way out of shape. Crowder was in the middle, 3 wide. He hung on to it, and Michael Bumgarner, a name we haven't called much of all night long, he's entering the top 6 for the first time tonight. Blake McCandless enters the top 10 after starting way deep in this field. Back in 31st, has made the moves all night long, and look at this, 3 wide behind them, even further down the line. Landwehr in the middle of the action. They're on the outside. Spencer Burns, Brad Wright, Matthew Batby, everyone in this mix. Still 3 and almost 4 wide at the exit of the 4th corner.
Yeah, a lot of these guys did pit. Like we talked about Daniel Nanny, he came down to pit for tires. I think Spencer Burns was another one. He's going to throw it down the inside 3 wide to the inside. Of all these guys, it's going to be tied off to number 2. Slight contact, but they're going to hang on to it. As Daniel Nanny, he's doing what he did earlier in the race, just throw it down the inside, find some grip and throttle up and get that straight exit. And he's doing a good job right now as he's got to get through a few more of these guys to get back into the top 10. As lots of great action, lots of great aggression out here. Continuing to be side by side, and he's going to look 3 wide. We got no trouble in the back of the field. Santi Tires gets involved, but that is once again, I believe, Nathaniel gets spun around again. That's the 2nd caution he's been involved in. Nathaniel Landwehr as the second incident he's been involved in tonight. And this time he came off a little bit worse than he did before.
Not the easiest mountain to climb if you're Landwehr tonight. Fighting behind Burns, Daniel Nanny and company. They just stack up. The 27 truck is the one that gets into him on the entry to 1 and 2. So it sends him for the slide. Another look on board. At that point, obviously loses it at the tap from behind, just basically redirects him into the outside wall. Santiago Tires, like you said, Daniel, getting a piece of that with nowhere to go on the outside lane. Just forced him near that outside wall with no way to really respond to what was going down. On-board look with Tires.
Yeah, on-board look, a lot of space in front of him, but with just how tight quarters are, and where there's really a very narrow racetrack, you really can't go anywhere. Just, as you see, that was the end result for him. So he's got to go to the pits, do a little repair work here. Won't say it's the end of the night, just maybe gets a little clearance of the tires. Not going to have a lot of downforce on the front of that thing, unfortunately. But as we see Brad Wright, he's coming down for service, maybe a little damage repair as well. And, yeah, we're seeing it. Still a lot of cautions. Cautions have been the name of the game tonight, Kenneth. But getting to the end of this race is going to be even more of an entity, I would say.
Just what happens, Daniel, when you race at a short track like this. It's so unique, so difficult to drive, and when it becomes so hard to pass, you're going to resort to physicality, whether it be intentional or not. And for there, Brad Wright just getting into the rear end there of Landwehr, setting him for the spin in front of traffic, and getting some others involved as well. So with 35 laps to go, we are underneath another yellow flag here in the 2nd official race for round 2 in this 2024 eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series campaign. Now let's talk a little bit about the Daytona winner from Split 2 in round 1, Daniel Nanny. This 19 truck, the reason we're focusing on him, Daniel, is because of his approach. He's been really one of the only drivers to make his way down to the apron and use the very true bottom of this racetrack during a green flag run. Are you surprised that he's been really the only one doing that, or is it just him trying to deviate the course based on his poise situation?
Definitely going to be interesting to think about, especially like thinking about the point spots and not even just that, just thinking about like everyone, just how everyone's racing, just what the point spot they're in. For guys that are up here in the front, they're all in pretty good point spots after Chicagoland, and there's a lot of guys that are ramping up the aggression because of the point spots they're in, because they honestly cannot afford another race. If they have to get aggressive to get all these spots, then that's what they're going to have to do, unfortunately. And I know a lot of people don't like to race that way because there is still that respect factor that goes around the service even today. It's definitely going to be hard to like be patient with one another, especially when we get to the end of this race, and there are a lot of points up for grabs now that we are down a race in the schedule. So just seems like this is all bound to happen eventually.
And you take one race out of a already short round 2 schedule and you turn up the intensity, tenfold, it feels like, with how often you have to get good finishes in this series and how much consistency really rewards you with a good enough position to make it, especially into contender this fall, where you get to compete with those who fell out of the top 20 in the Coke Series this year after the season is over. You know, so many things you have to weigh and consider. This could be the end of the journey this year for many drivers just because of that race being taken out, but they are going to make the most out of what is left with race 2 officially in round 2 here at IRP. So far, Agnell Phillip in control, and it remains that way, looking towards the restart with 32 laps to go. Michael P. Frisch cannot react. They wiggle with Andrew Navarro. The 42 truck is out of shape in 1 and 2.
Frisch, he is to the right rear of Agnell Phillip. Is he going to take advantage? He gets to the outside. What's the Agnell Phillip going to do here? He's going to fire down the inside. Michael Frisch, this is his best chance to get the lead all night long. And they're rubbing on one another. And oh, close quarters off of turn number 4. And then we're side by side because you got Navarro and Kerner. And oh, Frisch overcooks it, gets into the outside wall. There's more contact in the back with Justin R. Smith. They're 4 and 5 wide in the back. Agnell Phillip takes back the lead, and they're getting crazy mid-pack. And there goes Spencer Burns. Splits into the pit lane. He saves it. There's no caution. They keep it straight.
What a save by Burns and Mitchell Hunt. They prevent another yellow. And for Michael P. Frisch, a kiss to the outside wall eliminates his chance at stealing away the win from Agnell Phillip. It was the closest we have seen these two virtually all night long. For Navarro, he shuffles back to 3rd, and with that, Eddie Ball on the outside looking to make the move. Clampett and Crowder behind them, going door to door for position inside the top 5. And you can imagine that Frisch is not happy with the way that unfolded. He wanted to stay up there and fight with Phillip for all that he's got. Kerner clears for 3rd ahead of Navarro behind them.
Hey, Kerner does clear for that 3rd spot, right back to where he was running before he came down pit road for some tires. So yeah, right back to where he was running, and maybe take advantage of these final 30 laps. Can he maybe get 1 spot? Can he get 2 more spots? Well, it's going to be hard with Andrew Navarro giving him the bumper, but that's going to mess up Navarro even more. Logan Clampett, he's another driver that came in on tires, and he's going to try to make a move around Navarro here. He's going to look to the outside maybe, but Navarro's going to keep rolling that bottom as we got a lot of side-by-side action throughout this field.
The good news is that Clampett is joined by a friend in the form of Team Conti's Michael Bumgarner, fellow teammate on the Technical Alliance side of things. Remember, we talked about his step into the top 10. Well, he's on this fight with Jackson Crowder. Ethan Lane, who was involved in a spin on the back straightaway earlier in this race. It seems like it never happened to this juncture of the event with 26 laps to go. He's got a shot to finish this one inside the top 10 with Daniel Nanny on the outside. And in the meanwhile, Agnell Phillip has pulled away by at least half a second over Michael P. Frisch. And if this race stayed green, that may be all that she wrote from Lucas Oil Raceway and Indianapolis Raceway Park. Frisch trying to catch up. No avail for Phillip at this moment as Clampett and Navarro now go door to door, make that Bumgarner down to the inside. Navarro falling off the pace.
Navarro, he is starting to fall back into the clutches of a lot of drivers with fresher tires. And as you see that, he's been running top 3 all night long, and now he's about to fall outside the top 5, really, for the first time. As he's going to look out the back battle with Michael Bumgarner, but you see Daniel Nanny, he took tires not too long ago, even fresher than the guys that are in front of him. So he's trying to make another charge through the field. He's going to clear Jackson Crowder. And let's see what he's going to do here. He's just going to stay in line right here behind Navarro. Maybe try to set up the exit to maybe make another move down the inside. Because we know how much he likes that inside line, making it work on the fresher tires. But no, he's going to go right around the outside of Michael Bumgarner. And he's going to make that work with ease. Bumgarner is going to get back up in line to stop the bleeding on the inside lane. As, yeah, everyone just kind of sitting in line here. As, oh, Navarro gets loose. He's going to get into the wall. And Daniel Nanny, he's going to throw it down the inside. Maybe a little bit of a slide job. Not quite yet. But he's going to remain side by side. Little rubbing, little contact with Navarro. They keep it straight.
Mind you, this is a difference of 75 laps on tires. Navarro is one of the few with guys like Michael P. Frisch and your leader Agnell Phillip to stay out as long as they did. Caden Rush with a wonderful save in the background. He hung on to it at the exit of turn 2. And caution is out, but for a different instance behind them.
Yeah, Caden Rush was not happy with someone over the radio, and I think we're going to figure out what that was all about when we get this replay here, but, yeah, that, Caden Rush very not happy over the radio. the last time by.
Well, this is Rush the lap before. Joshua Ballier, Ethan Lane, them going door to door behind, and Caden Rush just looking down low on Jackson Crowder. Again, so difficult to make that inside lane work here at IRP unless you've got significantly fresher tires. But right around here is where the trouble begins for Rush. And sideways mid-corner, he hangs on to it, but right behind him, Connor, Euroshack is the one that gets involved. The Chicagoland winner in trouble.
Euroshack kind of got spun right there. Don't know if that was the cause of the stack up from the guys in front or unless just close quarter racing gone wrong, but Euroshack, he goes around at the back half of the field, which I believe with his teammate Logan Helton. It is with his teammate Logan Helton. Unfortunate contact, kind of like they just kind of got glued together and really just kind of ran out of space. They got together, and yeah, so Connor Euroshack, definitely not what he needed at the end of this race.
Here's a look on board from Helton, the two Nexus trucks tangoing together. Right there is where they make the contact, and yeah, it just looks like they stick like glue. No way for them to escape each other at the rise off the corner. Euroshack, the unfortunate bystander in this situation, gets turned around by Helton. And for Euroshack, this may be, of course, his worst finish of the round, knowing that we only have one race complete. And for Euroshack, in turn, he's going to fall back to 28th. So after a solid beginning to this race, Euroshack has encountered the backside of all of this. He will restart deep in this field with only 18 laps left to go from IRP with Agno Phillip at the front. We saw what happened with Michael P. Frisch and how he got to the outside. Daniel, work us through how you make that happen on the outside lane if you're Michael P. Frisch and just the situation that did not allow him to take away the race lead.
Yeah, I think on one of those restarts, he got alongside, but then maybe overcooked one of the corners, slightly scraped the outside wall, and that allowed Agnell to get clear. But, I mean, that's your one chance. You finally had a restart that kind of went your way. You had to take advantage and just go be as aggressive as you can to take advantage of it. And unfortunately, it just didn't quite work out enough. But right now, he's got another chance to do it again. So, if he can just time another good restart and get alongside Agnell Phillip, and maybe if he can just get ahead at the right time, if the caution flies again, that'll be another huge advantage to maybe get this lead, but everything's gonna have to probably work out perfectly if we have any more restarts.
And at this point, you rule out strategy because you've been out on the racetrack for this long without pitting. If you're Phillip or Frisch, the answer isn't to hit pit road now. It is going to be stay out as long as you can, and if the fresh tire trucks catch up to you, well, hold them off like hell until this one is over. We are ready to double them up. Restart ready for us with 16 laps to go. And a quick reminder that if you want to keep up with all of the updates in the world of eNASCAR and all of the developments across Road to Pro, Contender, and the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series that is currently in season, you can scan that QR code on the bottom left side of your screen and keep up to date with all things eNASCAR and with iRacing, the official simulation partner of NASCAR. It's Agnell Phillip leading the most laps tonight, searching for his first win of the second round with Michael P. Frisch to his outside. Will it play any differently like we've seen all night long? Who's to tell? Phillip with the restart, 16 to go.
Back down in turn one, Eddie Kerner got a really good jump on that restart there. He's going to get alongside Michael Frisch, going to get his nose out in front. They're going to be side by side for the second spot. And look at Daniel Nanny. This is the closest he's been to the front all night long, and he's got even fresher tires than all these guys up here. So I would count him out as Andrew Navarro. He gets sideways. He's going to get up out of the groove, out of line, but he'll hang on to it as now. Look at Daniel Nanny. He's going to throw it to the inside for third place. Clampett, he's trying to look for a spot around the outside of Eddie Kerner. And now they're going to be side by side for third place with Daniel Nanny. He's making a late charge at the end of this thing.
It's a why not attitude out of Daniel Nanny. Remember, he got stacked up in the big one at Chicagoland about a month ago in the first race of this second round and was forced to finish in 29th. He needs every last point that he can get with Pocono being taken off the schedule. He forces his way down low on Kerner. He takes away P3. We're 3 wide all the way in the back. Landwehr in the middle.
Yeah, they're getting crazy in the back half of the pack, and this is for like 21st position, but as we look out the back of Daniel Nanny, look at that field going crazy behind him. Now we ride on board as he's going to throw it down to the inside of turns 1 and 2, maybe get to Frisch's rear bumper, maybe try to move him out of the way to get another spot. He is hustling that thing as he's trying to find some rear grip off the corner. 13 laps to go, coming back to 12. Daniel Nanny trying to make a late charge with those slightly fresher tires, and he's been very fast all night long, and he's got the track position that he's been looking for all night long.
Again, the difference in tires between Nanny and the 2 leaders up front is 75 laps to the favor of this Gossett truck in the number 30 with Ryko Engineering and that Ford F-150. Daniel Nanny can push his way forward, but the real question is, does he have enough time? He forces his way down low on Frisch. They hip check twice, 3 times at the exit of turn 4. Nanny stays down there, trying to eliminate Frisch from being second fiddle in this one. 10 laps to go, next time by.
Coming back to 10 laps to go, and Nanny, he's going to throw it in there. He's going to pull a flying job on Frisch. Bout completes it, and he gets the spot. Puts Daniel Nanny to P2, and now has Agno Phillip in the crosshairs. Phillip has led all night long, but now he's going to be facing his greatest challenge yet. Fresher tires coming behind him. If this stays green, we might have a race for this win.
It could be mano y mano, but did Agno Phillip pull out to such an advantage that Nanny cannot close the gap in enough time? We knew what he can do with Frisch. We knew what he can do with guys like Andrew Navarro. Can he do the same with a man who's dominated this race all night long? The time is running out. 9 coming to 8 laps to go as Michael Frisch has to play more defense. Caution is out. We may head into overtime as Mitchell Hunt seems to be the source.
Yeah, as you see, Daniel Nanny was beginning to make his charge, but now this is going to bring him even with Agno Phillip on this restart, so that's going to get exciting. But for right now, we got to figure out what happened here. It looks to be Mitchell Hunt, as they were 3 wide, going crazy, and that collected a few of them as he did end up going around. We'll see on the replay here.
We knew Hunt was in that miraculous save with Spencer Burns earlier in the race. There's Nathaniel Landwehr, cannot escape being in the middle 3 wide. That bit of contact sends Hunt around for the spill. He gets several others involved in that too. And luckily for everyone, I think they escape any major damage to take them out of this race. But for Hunt, it hasn't been the easiest race from IRP tonight. I'm sure this one doesn't make it any easier.
Definitely doesn't, and especially we're running out of laps. So if you're at the back of the field now, then you're running out of chances to make up any more positions. So running out of time, very unfortunate. But as you see, bumpers are going to be used. The aggression is going to get even more. It's going to raise up even more. And as we ride on board Matthew Bappy, as you see, they didn't really even touch. A little bit of net code right there, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, just very unfortunate situation. And now we go to the front of the field. Agno Phillip has led this race from pole position from start to finish. But Daniel Nanny, he's got the tires, and this is the closest he has been to the front all night long. He has won in split 2 of our coverage in round 1. He won at Daytona, and I'm sure he would love to get a win and help him out in those points.
And he would join the group of, so far, it looks like everyone so far, winners in round 2 that also picked up a checkered flag earlier in the season. In round 1, Daniel Nanny was the driver who picked up the win in the first race of the round at Daytona, was able to miraculously get the win. He's trying to defeat Agno Phillip, who has been winless all year long in Road to Pro competition, has been consistent enough to make round 2, but a win definitely would seal his fate if he wants to make it back to the eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series, set to take place later this fall. Now, the advantage will fall to Phillip as long as he can master the restarts, which it feels like Daniel, he has over the course of this race. But for Nanny on the fresh tires, that may be the chance to pounce. How do you feel if you're Phillip here, trying to play a little more defense than offense and pulling away?
I'd say if you're Agno Phillip, just keep doing what you've been doing all night long. Just get a good restart and just hang on the best you can, because Nanny has really had to use up his tires to get through the field. So while he may have a little bit more life than you do, you have the clean air and you are in control. So as long as you just control these restarts to perfection and you just hang on for what it's going to maybe looks like be 3 laps to go when they come back around, that's all I need, 3 laps. And the only way Nathan's going to get around you, he's probably going to be using the bumper to get around you. So we'll see what happens when we get to the end of this thing. But if you're Agno Phillip, if you don't win the race and you still come home second, it is okay. You're still bringing home some good points, because I bet a lot of these guys are now thinking where they're running in the top 5, in the top 10. They're just thinking, just bring home these points, and we'll take them. We'll see at Watkins Glen next time out.
And as we double up, we are about to encounter a semi-organic green-white checkered restart with Agno Phillip up front, Daniel Nanny on the outside of the front row. with Michael P. Frisch, Eddie Kerner, and Logan Clampitt completing the rest of the top 5. If we do get another yellow, we will extend this race past the scheduled distance and get right into eNASCAR overtime. We'll explain those rules if we cross that bridge. But for now, 3 remain. From Lucas Oil, IRP, Agnell Phillip, the dominant man of the night. Can he close this one off, or will Daniel Nanny spoil the party? Green flag restart with 3 laps to go. Phillip on the inside has the run. Nanny's got the advantage. He pokes his nose there for the race lead.
He's got the grip on the outside lane. He's going to maintain it. Phillip got a
crash behind them. Big time trouble. Andrew Navarro is in the midst of all of that. Almost everyone got involved, and the yellow flies once more. Caden Rush, but he got stuffed, and we are headed to eNASCAR overtime.
And a lot of destroyed trucks at the front of this field. Blake McCandless, I saw, got spun around. Andrew Navarro, his night is done. That's not going to help him in the point. That's probably going to be his drop for the 5-race span, or 6-race span, excuse me. Let's take a look at what happened. We see a lot of people throwing it down the inside here. Ethan Lane in front of him. Navarro gets knocked sideways by Judge Balliet. He gets turned to the wall. Caden Rush goes around Blake McCandless, and that is, ow! Someone goes flipping. Oh, I think Navarro got launched out of the park.
He did, and Caden Rush also went for a Rocket League-like jump as he got hit by Blake McCandless. Watch this again. As Navarro gets loose, he overcorrects into the wall. Rush also tags the wall and then gets sent up in the air. Robbie Vrabel Jr. in the background as well. That black and yellow number 60 truck, he gets sent for a wild ride. Matthew Batby dealing the last blow to Caden Rush, and that takes several heavy contenders out of this race in a hellacious crash. I don't think I've seen anything like this from IRP.
That's some of the biggest one.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness. Who was that back there? I'm trying to, who is, oh, we had another wild ride. Robbie Vrabel with a wild ride. Caden Rush took the biggest flip of the night. Andrew Navarro went over the pit wall. No fence holding up, or no fence or anything blocking that. Just Navarro got stuck in the wall or something, and he flipped out of the racetrack.
And that is a huge blow dealt to Navarro, who had spent most of this race up front and was one of at least 4 drivers to stay out as long as they did on the set of tires that they started with. And like we say, one little moment can change the trajectory of your race, or in the worst case scenario, can take you out of contention. Another look from Vrabel and company's perspective. Navarro just, got sent over the wall, it seems like, but disappeared before he can actually eclipse the wall on the outside. And everyone gets stuffed up into that. Justin Smith, who we saw go for a spin earlier in this race, thought he might have had a comeback brewing, but unfortunately, his night will be over. And we will head into eNASCAR overtime for the first time this evening from Indianapolis Raceway Park. Boy, Daniel, that was a lot to digest. Biggest crash we've seen over the course of the race. And I'd say we're 2 for 2 in the second round for big ones.
Yeah, definitely had a big crash Chicagoland, had another big one tonight. I did not anticipate seeing trucks flipping at a short track, but I mean, I've seen weird stuff in iRacing, let's be real. But but for guys like Andrew Navarro, that's not going to be the other night he needs, and he flipped out of the racetrack, like I mentioned, which automatically tows into pit road. So he's already going to lose several laps, and that's going to effectively end his night. Caden Rush, half of his truck was over the friggin' wall down to the back straightaway. He got lucky to not flip out of the track to reset him to pit road. So, but yeah, I want to bring this up here real quick. Agnell Phillip, he barely hung on at the caution flag. But Nanny, as you saw, he had a lot of grip around that outside lane, and he didn't even get the greatest restart. So, Agnell's definitely going to have to go to work here to hang on to this lead, to hang on to this win. Because Nanny, he's got the grip on the restarts, but if Agnell Phillip can just knock this restart out of the park and bring her home in one piece, he'll be going to victory lane. But it's about to get crazy, Kenneth, as we're going to overtime number 1.
Well, here we go on this first attempt at a GWC from IRP. If we do get a yellow before the leader reaches the white flag lap, we will reset and do it all over again. But if we get the white flag from this racetrack, it is all official. Phillip, Nanny, green flag restart.
And that was probably the best restart that Agnell Phillip has had all night long, as he's going to lead him down to turns 1 and 2. Daniel Nanny is stuck on the outside battle with Eddie Kerner. As Nanny, he's going to get the run off turn 2 down the back straightaway. Eddie Kerner, he's going to try to steal P3. from Michael Frisch, Michael Bumgarner. We got more trucks in the wall. They're all wall riding, but they're going to keep it straight. We're coming to the white flag, Kenneth.
This is the final lap
Never
from
mind,
IRP, and the caution is out. As soon as Phillip was crossing the start-finish line, Caden Rush and others involved, and Rush for the second straight incident goes for the spin, and the yellow ignites, bringing us to the second attempt at overtime. That must have been heartbreaking for Agno Phillip, who thought this one will be over.
Caden Rush, it has not been a good last, I'd say, 5 minutes for him, as we're going to take a look at the replay here behind James Wetzel with no nose on the truck. As we see Logan Helton and others up in the outside wall. Wetzel bounced up in Matthew Bappy. He gets turned around, collects a few more at the back of the pack. There goes Caden Rush. He gets turned around right there. Justin Smith, he makes nice navigation through there. And that is gonna, it's been a rough night for a lot of these guys, and they just want to get this thing over with.
And it begins with Ashton Slice in that 33 truck who goes up into the wall, and then Wenzel and company, as they were checking up, the Altus Engineering Chevrolet gets spun around, sending Caden Rush into the wall. And what a turnaround to the negative side it's been for James Wenzel. He started this race on the front row in second place. And boy, has this thing unraveled in possibly the worst way, as the 43 truck ends up on pit road. Johnny Avila will get his lap back as a result. And for the second time, we enter another green-white checkered attempt. Now, to explain the rules ad nauseum for those watching, of course, we just had our first attempt. Yellow flag came out before the white flag lap, therefore we will do it again. We have 3 attempts to finish this race under green if necessary. If we do exhaust all attempts, the leader at the timing of the last yellow flag thrown will be considered the winner. But like we said a little earlier on, if the leader does catch the white flag without a yellow occurring before then, we will have a winner nonetheless. It doesn't matter if they all wreck coming to the start-finish line. The yellow will not be thrown by what is iRacing officials on the server, and we will end this one under green no matter what. That could have been an escaped bullet for Daniel Nanny, because we saw Daniel, it's hard to say the two Daniels, one in the booth and one on the racetrack. For Nanny, he got the good run on the restart prior. Phillip had the best restart this time, like you mentioned. To see that yellow flag and to have to do it all over again must be a little wrenching in a sense.
Yeah, for sure. That is definitely with the amount of overtime restarts that we've been having. And that's been a common theme for us this year, Kev, with all the races we've been covering on FTN, especially in round 1. It seemed like we had an overtime finish every other race. But here, especially these guys just want to get this thing over with, because like your guys are right at the finish. You just want to take your points and get on to the next one at a road course, so which is going to be a very exciting show in 2 weeks' time at Watkins Glen. But right now, guys like Agno Phillip want to get this thing over with and just bring home this win, because Agno Phillip, he's been class of the field all night long, and it'd be good to just finish it up by taking this thing to victory lane. But Daniel Nanny didn't have the greatest restart on that last one. If he can learn from it and have a better restart this time around, you will be fighting for this win.
Well, it only takes one restart to change the entire perplexion of this race. For Nanny, his restart came about for the second to last time. For Phillip, it may have been the decider had we stayed green on the last restart, but nonetheless, this is our second attempt at a green-white checkered from IRP. Agno Phillip has held on this long. Can he complete the wraparound, or does Daniel Nanny cut the cord and get his first win of the second round? 2 laps to go on our second green-white checkered attempt. It's an even jump for both leaders entering turn 1.
Nanny timed that perfectly, as good as he could have. Agno Phillip, he's going to wrap around the bottom, but Nanny's got the grip around the outside. We're going to maybe a little 3-wide action. Nope, they remain 2x2. But Phillip, Nanny, side by side, door handle to door handle. As they come through turns 3 and 4, they're coming to the white flag.
He is there. Phillip has to push him high, and this race, as of now, is official. There's a huge crash at the back, but the white flag is thrown. Nanny brushes the outside wall. Michael Frisch going down low. This race is not over yet. Challenge for 3 and 4. Frisch dives in for second, but the dominant driver of the day stays ahead. Agno Phillip, first win of round 2.
Eddie Kerner was caught up in that last lap deal. He got spun around. Many others got wrecked at the back half of the field. It is all crazy. We'll have to all digest this after all this is said and done. But Agno Phillip gets the job done. laps from pole, leads every lap, wins the race. Nanny gave him all he could, but at the end of the night, Agno Phillip was able to hang on with the clean air and just had a very good truck to hang on in the lead. Very, very good race by him. And what a night, but right now we need to digest everything that just happened on this last lap.
Oh, man, and on the second overtime restart, we will get through everything that went down that included Eddie Curter and a bunch of others in it, but Agno Phillip gets the taste of victory for the first time in round 2 and for the first time in 2024. Agno Phillip, who barely missed out on points last year to the second round, was able to push forward this time through. And the reward, oh so sweet for dominating this one from IRP, gets the win over Daniel Nanny and Michael P. Frisch, who gave him a fight at the end. But it's Agno Phillip, the winner from Indianapolis Raceway Park. We'll watch his celebrations, but first, Daniel, we have to dial up exactly what went down on the last restart. We were almost thinking that a caution would come out. It did not, but the mayhem still ensued. This was on the way to the white flag lap with Eddie Kerner fighting with Michael P. Frisch, Bumgarner, and Clampett into 3 and 4, and here's how it all started.
Yeah, Michael Bumgarner just all over Eddie Kerner's bumper. You see Logan Clampett to the outside, and we're going to have to get a better angle of that, but just a little tight squeeze. And then, let's see, I'm trying to figure out everyone that's getting involved in this, but just a mess. Oh, there's Jack Mays. I think he lost his right front right there. And, yeah, here we go. We're going to get another angle. I believe that was Joshua Balliet was the ESC truck that got involved. But, yeah, just close quarter racing on the last lap. He gets turned around. There goes Balliet. He goes around. Logan Helton's through the grass. Spencer Burns, I believe, got disqualified at the end for all the incident points, so that's unfortunate. But, as you see, everyone else trying to get through here. But what a mess as we continue. Logan Helton's still up in the wall. Looking at Spencer Burns here. I believe he's going to get hit coming to the line here. And maybe right there. Or, no, I think right there is where he gets DQ'd. So I think he's going to end up finishing 29th, one lap down instead of maybe finishing one spot better. But, oh, boy, what a mess to end this one after what was a pretty rough race to begin with.
And this is Jack Mace, the onboard look. He's at the tail end of this accident, but he definitely stuffs into it at the entry of turn 1. Look at Caden Rush and Santiago Tires. They go out before Jack Mace even enters the scene, and it's a laundry list of trucks that pick up either damage or just get fully involved in that. You're right. Right front was gone off the 07 truck, and he was just doing what he could to survive, hanging it on the outside wall. That's enough to finish this race in 23rd.
Take a look at what he did, as one Rick Allen might say. But, yeah, just a whole mess. But once again, congratulations to Agno Phillip. Had the track position. Did not pit once at all this race. Neither did Michael Frisch and a couple of others. But hats off to them. Very good race, very good strategy. And definitely interesting to see how this running order is all shaken up when it's all said and done. Because we definitely got a weird running order when the dust is settled, all the smoke is cleared, as we're going to review our final race results.
A lot of points to deal out, but of course the positions to figure out first after 2 green-white checkered attempts from Lucas Oil, Indianapolis Raceway Park. We will take one short break and be right back with the post-race coverage here on FTN. Don't go anywhere.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back to action from the virtual Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park, where after 131 laps and 2 grueling green-white checkered attempts, we have a winner, and it is the man who was up front all race long, Agno Phillip, the winner for the first time in round 2 this year. Daniel Nanny gave it all that he got, but brushed the outside wall on the white flag lap. If he hadn't touched the outside wall there, you can imagine what the finish might have been like for Nanny in the attempt to steal this one away after a tough first race at Chicagoland, where he logged in at 29th place. Michael P. Frisch, along with Agno Phillip, two of the strongest trucks all day long, and including with all the yellows, just being able to stay up front and not pit a single time. Frisch ends up with a top 3, his second top 10 of round number 2. Michael Bumgarner for Team Conti ends up in P4. He's got his teammate for Team Conti, Logan Clampett, on the outside. That rounds out the top 5. Jackson Crowder with a strong race all night long ends up in P6. Ethan Lane, who went for a bit of a spill earlier on in the night, facing the inside wall at one point, was able to rebound for a top 7 effort. Matt Cooker started 29th, ends up inside the top 8. Blake McCandless as well, deep in this field. He started 31st, ends up as 9th. And how about dead last for Brad Wright in the 27 truck, ends up rebounding to a top 10 here from IRP. Ashton Slice in the 33 faced some troubles, but another beneath a 30th place start gets him inside the top 11 at the end. And Mitchell Hunt in the 20 gave it all that he could in the mess that was that final restart. He ends up rounding out the top 12.
Yeah, how about that Ashton Slice? Don't think we mentioned him one time the whole night, but he persevered and got a really good finish, so very good props to him. Ashton Crowder, another one that started deep in the field. He gains 20 spots, finishes 13th. Will Cooley, he's going to end up 14th. Nick Miller, who was, I think, a lap down most of the race, comes back and gets a top 15 out of it. So, fair play to him. Garrison Hogan, Logan Helton, Eddie Kerner ends up 18th after spinning on the white flag. So, the big loss of points there after his win at Chicago. Santiago Gutierrez comes on 19th after all his issues, and Justin Smith, he hustles out a top 20 out of that mess. And then we got James Wetzel, Matthew Morton. Jack Mace finishes 23rd out of the pretty miserable race he had, even right from the drop of the green flag. And Kaner Rush, he came on with what he could, ends up 24th.
You've got a lot of strong drivers that finished pretty deep in this field just from bad luck at the end. Matthew Bappy had a pretty strong run brewing, then ends up 25th. Nathaniel Landwehr didn't find luck at all, even from the jump of this race. 26 is where he finishes. Connor Yuroshak, the winner from Chicagoland, unfortunately got spun earlier in the race and really could not recover. 27th is where he ends up after this one. Chad McGinley in the 31 truck is 28th. Spencer E. Burns, you saw him in the huge amounts of contact that ensued on the white flag lap on the overtime restart. He'll finish in 29th. Joshua Ballier in the 10 truck started 30th, and that's exactly where he's going to finish after 131 laps. Robbie Vrabel Jr. took to the skies on the back straightaway. 32nd is where he will end up. Andrew Navarro, strong all night long, had not escaped the top 10 for the entire race until the carnage ensued. 31st is where he ends up. Johnny Avila in 33rd. And then Matt Danson and Dustin L. Johnson rounding out the 35 truck field from the virtual Indianapolis Raceway Park. And that does it. It was a heap of mayhem to the end, but surprisingly enough, Daniel, we didn't have that many trucks a lap down or more until the end. We only had 25 trucks out of the 35 that finished on the lead lap. So I'd say even with all the yellows and everything that went down, it was a success on that front. Attrition really didn't take care of the situation. We saw a lot of drivers with damage still putting it out there because they wanted all the points. a tough one to endure at IRP, but I'm sure a lot of people expected it to be rather physical.
Yeah, for a short track like IRP, I think it's a place where you shouldn't suffer too much from damage compared to other tracks that we're going to be going to later in the schedule. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to short tracks in iRacing, whether it's at a very competitive level or whether it's in the bottom splits, this is what you come to expect. But you can have good races like the other split did that apparently I think went caution-free. So two very different splits, two very different races tonight out here in Indianapolis. But nonetheless, we got to give our props to Agnell Phillip for hanging on, doing the best he could, and him getting the win. But also got to give our props to Daniel Nanny as well. Started 22nd and finished second. So even though he may not qualify the best, going with a different strategy, pitting in the middle part of the race, and making that late charge at the end, it gave him the spots that he needed. And Michael P. Frisch kind of just continuing what he's been doing throughout round 1 and into round 2. 2 good finishes to keep him solidly in the top 20 in points as we got now only 4 races left. 2 down and 4 left as we're going to a road course in 2 weeks' time.
You're right. Watkins Glen next up on the calendar. We'll discuss the details of that race in just several moments. We are trying to get post-race interviews down. We know that McConey Entertainment has had their coverage of this race as well, so they're trying to wrap that up. We do want to get you an update on what happened on the other split of action. Daniel already alluded to it. Green flag from lap 1 to the very end at lap 120. That race ended, and the broadcast ended a little over an hour, and by a little over, I mean just a minute. So that race was rather quick over the course of the race. Obviously, ours a little lengthy at almost 2 hours, an hour 45, but we still got it done, and Agnell Phillip still considered the winner. If you want to know the winner for the other split race, it was Christopher M. Hill, who dominated that one, stayed up front, much like Agnell Phillip did all night long, suffered or not really suffered. Agnell Phillip was the one that suffered. Christopher Hill dealt with much calmer seas than Phillip did over the course of this race, but Hill able to get the win from Indianapolis Raceway Park. Now let's dive into the schedule. Watkins Glen up next, and again, we're touting the fact that round 2, Daniel, has so many different tracks on display. It felt like round 1 had a little bit more of a rhythm going with the 1.5 mile tracks, the super speedways. You had some short tracks in there as well, but for the most part, drivers had a set of track that they were mostly used to. Round 2, very different from the jump with Chicagoland. You know, we were supposed to race at Pocono, and that didn't happen, but that would have been another added factor to the series and the round tonight at IRP. Watkins Glen up next. What's it like to prepare for the first and only road course race of the Road to Pro season?
Well, I'm very interested to see how it's all going to play out because we have not seen Watkins Glen on the Road to Pro schedule since the 2021 season. And is 10 laps shorter than when they ran in 2021, where it was 45 laps. Now it's only going to be 35 laps, which I am hearing there are already some strategy games that could be put into play when we go there in 2 weeks' time. But this is where we're really going to see kind of like, this is just kind of the diversity we have on the schedule here in round 2, which we have seen over the last couple of seasons. But we're really going to see who are the road ringers of this series and who can like diversify their driving style to different, not just the different types of racetracks, but now having to turn right smack dab in the middle pretty much of this schedule. And then we got tracks like Milwaukee, Rockingham, and Homestead that round out the season, which Rockingham is a very interesting race I am looking forward to. Not really one of my personal favorite tracks to drive, but definitely going to be interesting to watch as we haven't seen that schedule on their schedule since 2021 either. So with any guys that have run Road to Pro with past experience, this is definitely going to be helping them these next couple of weeks as we decide who is going to make that top 20 and who's going to make it to the Contender Series.
Oh, hey, man, Rockingham is pretty fun. I at least say that it's a pretty fun track to drive, and it's one of the more difficult ones, too. It's super bumpy. It's a very old surface, but for the trucks, that is going to be another obstacle that the teams have to deal with. Again, we go to Milwaukee, Rockingham, then Homestead to cap off the rest of this 2024 calendar as we await to talk with Agnell Phillip, Daniel Nanny, and Michael P. Frisch, the top 3 finishers here from Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park. Like we said, for Agnell Phillip, this is his first win of the 2024 Road to Pro season. Went winless over the course of round 1. I assume that he is absolutely elated to finish this one the way he did, and despite all of the pressure, Daniel, it can be rather easy for a driver to make that one mistake on the restart, and on that last one, we almost thought it was it for Phillip. We thought Daniel Nanny could have had the restart of his life to take away the lead and have Phillip's lead laps go to waste, but Other than that, Agnell stayed locked in, focused on the assignment at hand, kept Nanny at bay in his little cove, let him take away second, but Phillip was not going to be denied in this race.
He for sure was not going to be denied, and I think that just kind of went to show like how much track position mattered. Yes, we did have guys that were able to get through the field on different pit strats and all the other hullabaloo, but as we saw at the end, just having pole position, having that clean air, from what I have been learning with these guys, getting a handle on the new aerodynamics with this truck, just kind of seeing like that clean air mattered, and being in traffic really was hard. It was really hard to pass all night long. So, and thankfully, Agnell kind of played it to perfection, even holding off 70-lap fresher tires to guys like Daniel Nanny and even other guys like Eddie Kerner and Logan Clampett that did take tires around the halfway point. Some guys were able to hang on, like Fresh was able to hang on in P3, and other guys like Navarro who kind of got swallowed up there at the end of the race, and the end result kind of showed for him, unfortunately. But nonetheless, overall, I think it was a great show, and yeah, I definitely think we got one big short. That's probably one of the biggest wild cards of the season done with a short track like IRP, and now we can move on to the rest of the schedule.
Well, when you look at a track like IRP that's as short as it is, you can imagine that the discipline, the change of discipline, in fact, could turn a lot of drivers off. They're probably like, oh, I hate IRP. I don't want to run a short track. But then you have to work to Watkins Glen, to where a lot more drivers are like, oh, I'm not a road course ringer. I'm not that best on road courses. It really will separate those who really enjoy this type of discipline and those who don't. But the common thread is that both of them will have to make a spot up or try to get into Contender Series if they want to have a shot at the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, which, Daniel, I mean, you can attest to your experience in the series already. The road course selection all over the place. You know, Monza, they went to Monza on the shortened circuit. Brands Hatch made its debut this year, Chicago Street Course. So I'd say if you're just now getting your bearings or still not really motivated to run as well on the road courses, you may have to start to think it a little differently, knowing that the goal at hand is to make it to Coke, and Coke definitely has road course racing and a lot of it.
And it's just like what we see in the real-life NASCAR Cup Series as well. The many different racetracks that we go to, from short tracks to super speedways to the road courses, which we're going to have probably at least 2 of them in the Coke Series next year, like it's been the last couple seasons. Now, we may not be seeing any road courses in the Contender Series this year unless they decide to really shake up the schedule, which we really haven't seen in a long time. It's been almost like a copy and paste these last couple of years. But to be able to run well at the top level, you're going to have to be good at every type of racetrack, and you're going to have to be on the pace no matter where you go. And I've learned real quick like how important it is to be right on pace and to kind of really just be at the speed as quickly as you can. But I'm very much looking forward to calling my first road course, calling my first race at Watkins Glen. Very interested to see how this particular aerodynamics with the truck and with the underbody damage that some guys have been picking up. When there's been some guys I've been hearing that have already been testing that they can pick up damage if they hit the curbs wrong, or if you have your truck set up too low where you do get damage off the big curbs, especially through the bus stops. So we got a lot of storylines heading into Watkins Glen with a lot of guys that had a great run tonight. Some guys that need a way better run than they had tonight, or some guys, this might be the end of their season with the very few races we have. So all the storylines heading to Watkins Glen in 2 weeks. I'm looking forward to it.
We are crunching down the drivers that can make an effort for Contender this year. That'll be a lot more fun when you tune in 2 weeks from tonight. We'll be going into August and the several months that follow until we decide those that make Contender. Then we'll go racing for that series in November to decide those that will advance to Coke Series eligibility for 2025. But for right now, 2 different races in round 2, 4 different winners across all of the splits: Eddie Kerner, Connor Euroshak, Christopher M. Hill, and in this race that we've covered tonight, Agnell Phillip winner from Indianapolis Raceway Park. We will head to Watkins Glen 2 weeks from tonight, but apart from that, this will wrap up our coverage of the 2024 eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series here on FTN. For everyone at FTN that makes it happen behind the scenes, for David Kreutz for all of his hard work, and for our crew on the broadcast tonight, for my colleague in the booth, eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series winner, Daniel Falkingham, I'm Kenneth Bueno signing off from Brownsburg, Indiana. Agnell Phillip, the winner in the second race of round 2.